Hello and welcome to Gator Spotlight. This is our first episode. I'm Tim and this is my wife Marcella, and we have a very special guest with us here today. We have Harold. How you doing, Harold?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Tim?
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, we're here to talk about Gator and what that's about. So, you had some questions?
I do. Well, first of all, what is Gator?
That's a great question. Gator is the Gator method is something that Pace Morby put together to create opportunities for some of his students to provide transactional funding for his sub two students.
Okay. So, what value can the Gator bring?
Great question. Gators, what they do is they help when there's deals where somebody doesn't have EMD, earnest money deposit, or transactional funding for things like dual closes, or maybe even situations where they might need hard money lending. A Gator can come in and partner with the wholesaler or investor or end buyer and provide that funding that they need. Now, instead of the traditional kind of lending that you would get from like a private money lender or a hard money lender, where they would have a certain percentage that they would get back or
Mhm.
an interest rate, we don't work that way. The way Gators work is we are going to partner with that person. We're going to JV with them on the deal, and we're going to take a chunk of their profits at the end. So let's say they're going to make $10,000 assignment fee, but we're able to bring that transactional funding to the deal. We might take, 3,000 of that profit, and because they couldn't really do the deal without us. So we're providing a service. We're providing, bringing to the table some funding that they need to get the deal started. And so we would take a chunk of the profit on the end.
Well, Tim, that sounds like you bring a great deal of value to it.
Thanks, Harold.
Who's going to benefit from a Gator?
Great question. Well, I think what happens a lot of time is that, different wholesalers are out there. Maybe they're a new wholesaler and they don't really have a lot of money, or
Mhm.
maybe they're a wholesaler that's real busy or an investor that's really busy and has a lot of deals out there. And I know when you got somebody who's doing maybe different fix and flips, they've got two or three deals all on the, going at the same time. They may
Mhm.
not have the cash flow to cover, even $2,000 or $5,000 of earnest money deposit because all
Wow.
their money's tied up in all their other deals. So
Right.
by coming in and providing that service for them and partnering and JVing with them, we allow them to have more deals. Maybe that allows them to take on another deal or two that they wouldn't be able to do if they didn't have the funding themselves.
Okay. Okay. That sounds great. Well, then, how does a Gator get a deal?
That's a great question. There's a couple different ways that we have been trained through the Gator method to get deals. One way would be to call title companies and find out which title companies are kind of investor friendly and which ones have worked with um, situations where there's transactional funding or even creative finance type deals. And once you find a friendly title company, you can say, hey, do you guys ever have a situation where somebody comes to you and maybe they don't have the earnest money deposit, or they need to do a double close and they don't have the funds for that? We would be like to be a resource to you. If you have someone in that situation, feel free to contact us and build a relationship with the title companies. That's one way. Another way, which I think a lot of Gators have gotten deals from, is simply getting out there on the different investment Facebook pages or other places where you
Okay.
can find people who are doing deals, and then just you don't want to spam, you don't want to put stuff out there necessarily in the feed, but you can private message somebody or comment on something. If somebody mentions that they have a need for something like that, you can comment, or you can just private message somebody who looks like they're busy and saying, hey, sometimes I know we get busy and you don't always have the funding. I'd like to be a resource for you, and try to connect and build those relationships through social media. That's another way.
That's great. Well, okay. So, are there certain documents that we need to do these Gator deals?
Yeah, and all the documents that we need are found in the Gator training. For those that are Gators, you can get those, all of those documents you need, and make copies and change them for each specific deal. In fact, I'm going to go through an example. I'll show you a few of those documents here in a little bit.
Okay, great. Um, so how does a Gator protect himself during this transaction?
That's a good question. Well, the way that works is, especially, let's talk about like earnest money deposit. Okay. Let's say I put down $2,000 earnest money deposit. If that deal closes or doesn't go through, I would lose my earnest money unless I already had in the paperwork and in the contract up front that should the deal cancel within the inspection period, I'm going to get my EMD back. So that's the kind of language that Pace has put in his purchase contracts, that we can send out a free copy of that to anybody who needs that. Let us know. We'd love to send you that so you can be using that contract that has that protection already built in. Or if you don't have that contract, if you work with somebody who already has a contract that doesn't have that, you can do an addendum that would protect the Gator. And then that basically says, during that inspection period, if the deal were to get canceled, that the Gator would get their earnest money back. Now, once the inspection period's over, that earnest money goes hard, and you're not going to get it back unless the deal actually goes through. So that's where Gators make a mistake of maybe, allowing that to go past the inspection period. The other piece of that is the Gator needs to cancel the deal if the wholesaler doesn't have an end buyer before the end of the inspection period. Basically, you're pulling your EMD out of the deal, canceling it, and you have the authority to do that because of the JV agreement you have. You're actually a partner on the deal who has the authority to cancel that deal if there's no end buyer in place. Now, if there is an end buyer in place, they're going to bring in their EMD, which is non-refundable, to cover your EMD that you already put in, and that's how you're protected in doing Gator deals the right way.
I like that. Sounds like the contract really protects the Gator.
Yeah, we need to be using Pace's contract to protect everybody for sure.
Well, Tim, I'm a new Gator, but I'm still learning the process. Is there an example maybe that you could give us of how to work through a deal?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I'd like to walk you through a little bit of our first Gator deal that we did. And to start off, well, where did that come from? Well, it didn't come from calling title companies or from social media. This one came from my wife, who is a acquisitions lead manager, and she was working with her team. And Marcella, why don't you tell us where this deal came from?
Yeah, so actually, I am doing wholesaling, and I'm a manager for a group, a team, and so I work with this team on a daily basis, and we actually make calls on a daily basis. And one of my markets is San Antonio, Texas, and so I called the agent for this property on Wilson's Creek, and she was very open to working out like the terms, and just, her seller was super motivated. They had already fallen out of contract more than once with other buyers. And
Mm.
and they were very eager to go ahead and just kind of get rid of the property. And they actually even went down in their asking price. So yeah, so that's pretty much, it's just cold calling, right? That's as a wholesaler, that's what I'm doing right now, is just cold calling,
Okay.
and that's how I got that lead. So if you know wholesalers and you make connections with other wholesalers as a Gator, they definitely do need that funding. They definitely do need help with the EMD.
Mhm.
So that's a great way for a Gator to step in and be that resource for them to close that deal.
Yeah,
Right.
when Marcella was getting the property under contract, we needed to send earnest money to the title company to secure that contract. And so she said, well, my husband, he's a Gator, he can do that. So that's how I got the deal. And then basically I filled out the paperwork that I needed to. Let me just share that real quick here. Let's have that. I can pull up here. Okay. Give me a second here. Here we go. Window. That's what I want. So, yeah, so this is my folder that I put together for the Wilson Creek property in San Antonio. And the very first thing I wanted to put together was this joint venture agreement, because that is the contract between myself and the wholesalers to say, hey, this is what I'm bringing to the table, and here's how I'm going to be compensated for that. So that's very important that you have that agreement. That agreement also gives you the authority to, like I said, during the inspection period, to go ahead and cancel that deal if an end buyer is not found within the inspection period. The next thing I had to do was put together the escrow instructions to send to the title company, which is just some basic information there so that they know what's going on with that. And then also the earnest money loan agreement, which is basically letting the title company know the agreement between the Gator and the wholesaler. So those three documents, these last two got sent to the title company so they knew what was going on. And that first one we had as an agreement between myself and the wholesaler. Now, there's a lot of other paperwork that happens along the way if you're involved with the transaction, and just keep all of that so that you know what's going on. I got sent all of the emails that got sent to the wholesalers also came to me. So I was aware every step of the way of where the process was at and was able to make sure that things were going to work out in the end.
So it sounds like you need to keep in contact with title.
Yes, that's one of the biggest roles of the Gator is to really be communicating with title. Don't just, send some money over and assume they're going to know where it's supposed to go. You have to call them or email them ahead of time and let them know, hey, I'm going to be JVing on this deal. Here's my role. Here's what I'm going to do. And then in addition to the email, you want to actually make that phone call and introduce yourself. Make sure that they understand what's going on in those documents that you sent. And also confirm that, hey, should we cancel within the inspection period? I want to make sure you guys understand that earnest money is going to come back to me. And then in the end of the deal, it worked out. All I had to do was once the deal closed escrow, I simply, right before the close of escrow, I sent them another email letting them know where to send my earnest money back, as well as my portion of the profit that I was going to get out of the deal. And they sent that back to me as instructed. So,
wow, sounds like this is a good opportunity.
Yeah, it really was a good starter opportunity for us and for me to get my feet wet with the whole Gator thing. And you don't really understand the paperwork until you actually fill it out yourself. Now, a lot of people will use transaction coordinators to do all the paperwork for them, do all the communication with the title company for them. And I think that's a great strategy, but there has to be enough profit there that you can afford that. I think most TCs charge somewhere between $500 and $1,000 per transaction or per deal to handle that for you. So that's a great idea. But I would say even if you're going to use a TC, you should go through the paperwork the first time yourself, just so you're familiar with it, because it's really, even though you have a transaction coordinator, it's really your money and your neck on the line and your reputation on the line if you don't understand the documents you're using.
So in this day and age, do we use electronic documents?
Yeah, that's the other thing that makes it super easy. Almost everything we did in this transaction was done through what's the
DocuSign. You want to definitely have DocuSign, and they do allow for free use up to, I forget how many uses, like 5 or 10 uses.
You could probably get through your first deal with the free version of DocuSign, and then after that you'll have money to be able to pay for the subscription.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I was going to say one more thing to add to that is that there's a lot of communication also between you and the agent. So expect that as well.
Yep.
It's not just between you and title. And if you have a really good agent, like I did on this deal, she just, I mean, she kept all of us super connected, and it made a huge difference. So.
Yep. Connecting with the title company, the agent or seller, if you're working direct to seller, and then also the wholesaler or whoever it is you're partnering with, just making sure that you have good communication with all of them.
Sounds like communication is key.
It is. That is
It
a
really
huge part
is.
of this business. I
So
mean,
true.
this whole real estate business, Pace always says it's all built on communications.
But what's great is we were actually working this deal while we were on vacation in Ohio. So you can be anywhere with your laptop and getting work done. And we got this under contract while we were on our vacation.
Yep.
So
Wow.
You can work remotely, and that, like you said, with all the digital things available and the communication available, you can basically, with the laptop or maybe even just your cell phone, you can
get it done.
Get business done from anywhere.
So if you know what you're doing, you can do it from anywhere.
Yep, that's
How
it.
can people get a hold of you if they wanted to do a deal with you?
Hey, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. You can get a hold of Marcel and I on Instagram at Gator to Close. You can send us a direct message there, and also follow us on that. And Harold, I know you're just getting started, and you've gone through the curriculum for both Sub 2 and Gator. And, I know you're looking to partner with some people who have a little more experience so you can learn the ropes. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, they can also get a hold of me on Instagram at Harold Harmon 90. And anybody who wants to squad up and work a deal, I'm here to do it.
Awesome.
All right, that sounds great. Well, this has been wonderful, Harold. Thanks for all your great questions, and we look forward to partnering with you on some deals together as well.
Can't wait to do it. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
Harold. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.